Hello, everybody, and welcome. Let's pull things to order. Sorry about starting a little bit late. This is the Transportation Committee meeting, January 17th, 2025. I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year and looking forward to a very fun and productive year this year. I'd like to start by asking our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, the world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app from a cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, el globo terráqueo y seleccione español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom desde su celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión, por favor, pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, Degeno, the Liswengo, the Kupeño, and the Kawia. This land has nourished, healed, and protected and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from the indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Wow. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to do a quorum check. Ashley, can you please confirm that we have a quorum?
I can confirm that we have 6 members present and 1 advisory member with us today. We have quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, we will start with item 1. We will do the non-agenda public member comments. For today's meeting, given the number of items on the agenda, I've asked that each member be allowed 2 minutes for your comments. And I would also request that people just do their best to stay on topic and be respectful. With that, Ashley, please go ahead with non-agenda public comments.
Yes, we have 2 member public comments for item 1. Tina Nguyen in person. Will be go first, followed by Alex Wong online.
Good morning. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm going to start off because one of my writers couldn't make it, so I'm going to read her email. Hello, my name is Susan Lee. I am 72 years old. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to everyone at On the Go. In 2024, I made the decision to stop driving due to problems with my vision. I researched if there were any travel services for seniors. What I found was On the Go, on the greatest service available. It is free and it lets me continue to do the activities necessary to live my life. I continue to be impressed by how kind and wonderful all of the On the Go staff members that help book my rides are. Tina Nguyen and her amazing team go beyond the call of duty for all of our seniors. To be honest, On the Go has been such a tremendous blessing to me. I don't know what I could do without them. Thank you for taking the time to hear my letter. Please continue to help seniors with your free ride program. Sincerely grateful, Susan Lee. Good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Tina Nguyen. I represent On the Go, a nonprofit transportation service with many years of experience serving older adults across San Diego County. First, I'd like to thank you for your commitment to ensuring safe, reliable, person-centered transportation options for our community. You just heard from one of our writers about how On the Go has been a lifeline for them. Stories like this are unique. They are what we hear every day from the older adults we serve from Oceanside to Encanto and everywhere in between. At On the Go, we pride ourselves on providing exceptional, reliable, and compassionate service. What sets On the Go apart is our in-house call center staffed with dedicated, emotionally intelligent professionals who treat every rider with the respect and care that they deserve. We have also built a ride scheduling dispatch and monitoring software that is fully customizable to meet the unique needs of the partners we serve. Our software, exceptional
Thank
call
you.
center.
Your time has expired. Our next commenter is Alex Wong. Alex Wong, please go.
The airport transit connection is a great project. Two of the project's concepts, the people mover and enhanced bus concepts, are wonderful, but the remaining concept, the airport trolley branch, is deeply flawed. The airport trolley would merge onto existing green and blue line tracks. It would take up green and blue line track space, thereby creating a bottleneck that would physically constrain the airport's green and blue line trolleys to only 10 minutes each. 10-minute frequencies on the mid-coast would be woefully inadequate. Already, mid-coast ridership has grown so fast that MTS plans to increase mid-coast frequencies to 7.5 minutes in 2025. And that's before San Diego approved the University City Plan update, which will add 72,000 new jobs and over 50,000 new residents near the mid-coast trolley. That's before the Navy announced they'll build homes for at least 15,000 new residents at Navwar near Old Town Station. Eventually, with this population explosion, we'll likely need 5-minute frequencies on the mid-coast. Unfortunately, despite costing $1.35 billion, the airport trolley would be less convenient and be 25 times more expensive to build than even the enhanced bus concept. The enhanced bus concept would speed up the 992 to an airport to Old Town Flyer with dedicated bus lanes and transit signal priority. It could place ticket vending machines and fare validators at bus stops, allowing passengers to pay before boarding and board the bus at any door. Bus stop curbs could be raised to match the height of bus floors, allowing passengers to easily roll on and roll off with luggage. And an enhanced bus would come up to every 7.5 minutes, serve Old Town as well as downtown, and have stops right at Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. By contrast, the airport trolley stop would be a considerable walk from both Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, and the airport trolley would only serve downtown, but not directly serve Old Town. Best of all, the enhanced concept would not compete with existing trolley lines for track space, allowing mid-coast and green line frequencies to be maximized.
That concludes the non-agenda public comments.
Thank you. Do I have any committee member non-agenda comments? Seeing none. Mario, do you have any updates for us?
Yes, and Happy New Year to those I haven't seen before. And, I want to welcome, notice that we have new leadership. We, last Friday, as our new chair is Mayor Hiebner. We have as a new first vice chair, Council Member LaCava. It's as our second vice chair, Mayor Minto from Santee. So I just wanted to put that in front. And I want to welcome some new members to TC, Shanilo Rivera and Patricia Dillard. Welcome. So that's also something I wanted to highlight. I want to highlight that in the federal budget, there was $250 million of additional funding that was approved for the Tijuana River. Also, as you could notice, we have begun our office move. So you could see the screen behind and other things are changing, being moved. So our goal is to be in the new building around March, and we'll be figuring out the different policy advisory meetings, the board meetings. Our goal is to have them through February here, and then sometime in March to move to the new building there. I do want to highlight that our revenue projections are being adjusted for Transnet, about 2 to 4% lower. Our CFO is looking into this and will come up with a more robust update This also impacts the TDA funds that go to our transit agencies. And she has been in communication with the transit agencies. The board last Friday also approved the execution of an agreement with the federal government, U.S. Customs and General Service Administrations for the Otay Mesa Port of Entry, as well as giving us the green light to bring in Atkinson's and Clark joint venture for the pre-construction contract. So things are moving forward with that. We're expecting the signature of the federal government on that agreement, hopefully by today or tomorrow. One of the agencies has already signed. We did present the airport transit connection yesterday to MTS. Thank you for having us there. And we also presented at the airport a board meeting. And we're highlighting the phase approach that we're looking at. And all this taking into consideration the collaboration with our partners, understanding that we develop the projects, but then we hand them off to the owner operators. So we clearly need to understand what's the capacity and capability of those owner operators to be able to sustain those projects and to operate. On the Lausanne realignment project, the BA has been concluded. The team is coming up with the final report. We will be presenting to the board sometime in February, late February. I think that the biggest thing there is understanding how far ahead have we done the analysis on all the different alternatives and see if within the window of NEPA, sufficient within the window of CEQA, we have done sufficient analysis to propose some changes or tweaks to the board, or to continue the process evolve itself to determine those feasible alternatives. So that's what the team is looking, and they also came up with some additional ideas and strategies. So stay tuned for that. And finally, I do want to bring up our bike projects keep moving forward. I do want to highlight that go to sandag.org for the different closures that we have going on, and want to highlight that there is a national-wide text scam where a lot of us are getting texts and now emails to pay for different toll roads, either in the Bay Area here. So none of the toll authorities go and request payment via text messages or anything like that. So just wanted to highlight that. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mario. Looking forward to the detailed descriptions of the secure bicycle facility parkings in our new building. So, so with that change. With that, we will now go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. Do we have any public member comments on consent?
There are no public comments.
Any board members wish to make a comment? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Moved by White. Second by Elo Rivera. Thanks. I will make one quick comment before we go to a vote, which is, the past couple of years, I've made comments about the performance management safety target setting. And we're at a point where we have to adopt it just to move forward. But I think in the spirit of Vision Zero, we should actually bring this item back sooner so we can identify whether or not we should be adopting our own targets as opposed to just relying on Caltrans to develop them for us and understand what the ramifications are. So for next year, I would like to have this discussion sooner for the perspective of understanding whether or not we should be adopting our own targets instead of just adopting the state ones. But with that, I'll call for the vote.
That vote passes unanimously with the members present.
Thanks. With that, we move on to the report section. The first report is item number 5, which will be presented by Ben Gembler.
Good morning, Transportation Committee members. As mentioned, my name is Benjamin Gembler, and I'm the Program Manager for the Access for All grant program. I'm here today seeking your recommendation for board approval of our funding recommendations for the AFA Cycle 2 Call for Projects. So the Access for All grant program funds projects that provide on-demand wheelchair accessible vehicle service for individuals with disabilities in San Diego County. I need to put my reading glasses on, sorry. New development. It looks to provide wave service for those who are not adequately served by transit and traditional paratransit. Prior to this program, there were no transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft that provided wave transportation in San Diego County. SANDAG's 2020 coordinated plan identified on-demand service for individuals with disabilities as a high priority need for the region, and Access for All has implemented service to meet that need. The program defines on-demand service as a response time of less than 12 hours. The response times are often far faster. So in 2018, Senate Bill 1376 created the TNC Access for All Act. The California Public Utilities Commission, or CPUC, established a program that provided TNC services for individuals with disabilities, including wheelchair users needing a wheelchair accessible vehicle in California. The purpose of the TNC Access for All program statewide is to incentivize the expansion and availability of on-demand transportation services for people with disabilities. On the local level, local access fund administrators, known as LAFAs, have been selected annually to administer funding to access providers. SANDAG has been the LAFA for San Diego County each year since 2021. Funding for the program comes from a 10-cent fee originating from each TNC trip taken in the county, and it is variable based on the number of TNC trips taken each year. SANDAG oversees an annual competitive process for funding known as the Call for Projects, administers the program, and monitors grantee performance. So the first cycle of AFA funding took place between May of 2023 and June of 2024, after funding was awarded and a grant agreement was executed. Facilitating access to coordinated transportation, or FACT, was selected as the access provider and was awarded approximately $2.5 million to provide on-demand wave service throughout San Diego County. Their Ride Fact Now program provided over 10,500 wheelchair accessible vehicle trips and over 2,500 on-demand wave trips in the region, with average total response times of under 40 minutes for riders requesting a trip. So in May of 2023, the Board of Directors approved evaluation criteria for the AFA Cycle 2 Call for Projects, which dictates how applications are scored. After further refining the call and incorporating additional recommendations from TC in July of 2023, the call was released in March of 2024. Applicants had a period of 90 days to develop and submit project proposals. The Call for Projects closed on June 14th, 2024. Following that, applications were reviewed for eligibility and an evaluation panel was assembled. Over the next several months, that panel was given an orientation, followed by their review and scoring of 5 eligible project applications. When their evaluation finished, staff met with the panel to discuss scoring, get their feedback on applications, and then funding recommendations were developed. On November 1st, staff sent out a notice of intent to award, notifying applicants of the proposed funding recommendation. SANDAG staff implemented several new elements to the evaluation process this cycle, based on grant program recommendations from the Transportation Committee in 2023 that were included in the Call for Projects adopted by the board. First, the scoring methodology was simplified per TC's recommendation, utilizing an average score approach rather than the sum of ranks approach that had previously been used. Second, a more detailed scoring rubric was included in the Call for Projects to help evaluators provide more consistent scores. Third, staff held an orientation to help evaluators become more familiar with the program, the Call for Projects, and with their responsibilities. And lastly, evaluators and SANDAG staff held debriefs after their scoring, sharing their scores, providing feedback on, and discussing strengths and weaknesses of the applications. Following the scoring by evaluators, their average qualitative scores for proposals were calculated and then summed with the total quantitative score calculated by SANDAG staff to equal the total application score for each project. Funding recommendations were then developed. So here you'll see the Cycle 2 AFA applicants on this table, their funding request, and the scoring of each project application. And in the column on the far right, you'll see staff funding recommendations in green. As you can see from the table, FACT received the highest total application score. As a result, we are recommending that they receive the full amount of funding that they have requested. Given that there was no funding remaining after the request, no additional applicants are recommended to receive funding. So today we are seeking your recommendation for board approval of the Cycle 2 Call for Projects funding recommendation. The Board of Directors will be asked to consider the funding recommendation at their meeting on January 24th. Following approval, staff will work with the awarded applicant to execute their grant agreement by March of 2025, and we anticipate that AFA's Cycle 2 service will begin shortly thereafter and will conclude on March 2026. And that concludes my presentation, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We will start by going to any public comment. Ashley, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Chair, we have 4 public comments at this time. We will have Faraz start off, followed by Peter Z, and then Mark, followed by Arun. Faraz, if you'll make your way to the podium, please. Okay, we will move to Peter.
Good morning, committee. My name is Peter Zishi. I'm on the board of the United Taxi Workers of San Diego, an advocacy organization based in the African immigrant communities of East San Diego. We partnered with FACT this year to promote a particular element of WAV services that we observed within the taxi industry, and that is that historically, the business model available to the taxi industry has not worked to serve disabled folks in San Diego in our taxi service. In 2023, Leonard Fuel, the vehicle for hire manager at MTS, initiated with us a study of this issue, how the taxi industry and MTS could better respond to this responsibility in our public sector, and produced, in coordination with us and some folks at San Diego State and UCSD, a study of what the situation was. We had input from the disabled community, and we produced a study that basically made a number of recommendations. Taxi workers decided that we would, as agents of change for over 15 years in the taxi industry, decided to take this on and with this policy at MTS, try and improve our role in providing disabled services to disabled people who need WAV vehicles. So we decided to partner with FACT as a part of their proposal to take on the specific task of implementing the MTS WAV study, and in particular work with our friends at the San Diego Airport that we've worked with for years to see how we might cooperate with them and provide better services, specifically at the airport, and also at other points of public service of people coming into San Diego. We look forward to working with FACT and with you all and with MTS and the airport and other public sectors in San Diego who have a tremendous responsibility. The expectation, I'll tell you this, and maybe you know this, the expectations of people in the disabled community are much different today than they were 10 or 15 years ago.
Your time has expired.
They want equal.
Mark, you're next.
Hubert H. Humphrey said, "The moral test of a government is how it treats those in the dawn of life, the children, the twilight of life, the elderly, and in the shadow of life, the sick and the disabled." By funding FACT, I say you, the board, will have passed this test with flying colors. you will provide your constituents who are in the twilight of life and the shadow of life with an affordable, gold standard transportation model that services the entire county using professional drivers in clean, comfortable vehicles. And I can't overstate this enough, door-to-door service. For those of us who are blind, in wheelchairs, may be cognitively impaired or have other mobility issues, the trip from a curb to a door alone in an unfamiliar setting can be the most treacherous part of the trip by far. You should be proud to fund FACT. I thank you, and everybody who utilizes accessible transportation thanks you.
And our last public commenter will be Arun.
Morning, committee. Arun Prem from FACT. Of course, I'm here to support the staff recommendation to fund AFA Cycle 2. 2 years ago, you voted to approve AFA Cycle 1 funding for FACT because we're the only agency providing accessible services around the county. As a result of that, we had 25,000 rides, most of them within 40 minutes of the call, and enhancements to software systems, and including 2 low emissions vehicles in our fleet. The reason this was a groundbreaking move was, I think to relate to that, you have to think about if you're coming to San Diego from a trip to the airport and calling Uber and realize, and you're told Uber is shut down, sorry, we can't help you. Or you're trying to get to urgent care and you're told there's no way to get there unless you book your trip days in advance. That's how people with disabilities deal with, or that's what they confront when they try to get around for the everyday things that you and I need to do to live our lives. FACT is proud to partner with UTWSD on Cycle 2 of AFA, and thanks SANDAG for the recommendation for funding. We felt that the 40-minute turnaround was not enough. We want to enhance that in Cycle 2. We want to make the service as equal, as equitable, as inclusive as possible for everyone who lives in San Diego who needs to get around. And I hope that with the staff recommendation, I also hope that SANDAG as well as TC will consider not just a one-year funding cycle, because this funding ends in March 2026. And then we're back to square one. So my hope is that we will consider not just this funding, but a permanent fix to this inequity and this situation where someone like Mark, who just spoke, cannot plan on getting around.
Thank you. Your time has expired. I will call on Faraz Jasmine one more time. Faraz? All right, that concludes the public comments.
Thank you. Do we have any committee comments or questions? Sean.
All right, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation here. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to FACT and UTW for partnering here. UTW, a lot of the members of that association live in my district. They are hardworking, they provide excellent services. I think that the partnership will just will be a enhancement to the excellent services that FACT is already providing. So thank you. Arun, Mikhail, I see you here. Peter, as always, thanks for sitting down, getting together, and making the partnership work. And are you looking for a motion to move the recommendation? Happy to provide that.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right, we have a motion by Elo Rivera, second by White. Do we have any other comments? Go ahead, Esther.
Thank you very much. I wanted to add on that FACT is usually only transportation that we have in North County. So it is especially important, as I'm hearing other parts of the county. So I want to thank FACT for all of the work that they do in ensuring equity and ensuring that we get as much coverage as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, go ahead, Priya.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely looking forward to supporting this and moving it forward. I just wanted to mention that, of course, NCTD also provides those services as well up in North County. So just clarifying that for the record. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Snow.
I just wanted to also request that we, as a board, explore, if not permanent, at least extending the grant reporting and the grant application process. It takes a lot of time to be able to write a grant, especially if it's a similar grant each year. And so I think Arun's point is well taken, and this should be a move towards a permanent equitable solution. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And I'd just like to extend my thanks for the people that came out and spoke on the topic. It was great to hear from you, and I know can be a lot of effort, and it also goes to show the passion that people have behind the fax service. So appreciate that. With that, I'll call for oh, sorry, Esther.
I just wanted to know if that is a recommendation we can make to the board, that we consider the request from FACT, and also it's just been mentioned by Mayor Snow, that we look into making this not permanent, but, more than just a year. Takes a lot.
I think we can
of work.
certainly take that as a request. Whether or not we can take a formal action on it, I don't think that's on the agenda, but is it close enough?
We can, just you're more than welcome to do whatever you wish. But we have taken note and we will look into it for
Alright.
sure. That we were already discussing it here. We
Okay.
don't really know in front of us if the guidelines had some policy procedures, but we can go and visit that and come back and report here to this TC committee, and then give you all the information, so then you could do a more well-informed proposal.
Okay. So I just wanted then to second the emotion that's behind the comment
Second
that
the
was
thought,
made by
yeah,
Mayor
okay.
Snow. Yes.
But right now we have the motion to approve on the board. That'll call for the vote. Thank you. Who are we waiting on? Oh. Oh, there it is, Metropolitan Transit, yes. You have to, is it just not working at all? Okay, we'll do that. So show the vote, and then MTS, your vote was yes? Okay, so,
That vote passes unanimously with the 7 members present.
yeah. And for the record, can you speak into the mic what your vote was on the first item?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thanks for getting that addressed. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the Purple Line Planning overview, and we'll have Cicely Taylor from SANDAG. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cicely Taylor. I'm a senior regional planner and the project manager for the Purple Line planning effort. Excited to share with you today the findings from our recent conceptual planning study that just wrapped up last month. There's a link to that report in your staff report, but I'll give the highlights today and also share with you what the next steps for this project would be. So to set the stage, the Purple Line has been in our long-range plan for the region for several years now as rail, and it would connect between San Isidro and Sorrento Mesa to provide a really high-quality transit option, an alternative to driving between these neighborhoods and along these busy freeway corridors. From the most recent regional planning effort and corridor planning effort, the teams identified that for this 30-mile distance from San Isidro to Sorrento Mesa to really be competitive with driving and provide a high-speed option, it would be really beneficial to have transit mode of rail that could leverage tunneling to provide stations that really serve the hearts of these communities where there are businesses and activity centers concentrated, and also have the most direct path possible between stations to keep those travel times low. So that was the vision that came out of our adopted regional plan and the South Bay to Sorrento corridor planning efforts. This project would provide a really dependable option for the low-income communities that depend on transit and this attractive alternative to sitting in traffic on the freeways. The project would provide connections to a lot of the backbone of our regional transit network, connections to the 3 primary trolley lines that you can see on the map, as well as a lot of the planned rapid routes that we have. This would expand access to job opportunities, education, medical services, recreation, and more. So with that, this latest conceptual planning study took a look at what it would mean to implement this higher speed transit option, something like a subway metro system that could really leverage those tunnels to connect these communities. Early on, we noted that there's really several different transit services planned in South County between National City and the border. I'll speak a bit more to that, but we really need to take a step back and holistically consider how multiple planned services can integrate and work together. So for this first bite of the Purple Line planning, we focused just between National City and Sorrento Mesa, where there was a little less complexity, at least in terms of multiple planned services. So here, these images show you a bit of how diverse these communities are. When we think about land use and density, we see very high-rise buildings in University City and Sorrento Mesa. And then more to the southern end of this corridor, we're seeing more residential communities in National City and Canto and City Heights. And all of these neighborhoods are still undergoing a lot of change. The SDSU campus in Mission Valley is a particularly relevant example where we want to connect there, but that development is really ongoing. So this gives you a sense of the different kinds of contexts that we need to take into account as we're looking to plan a transit route like this. We'll also need to consider the natural spaces that lie in between these community centers and consider that there's ongoing development that we need to plan for so we can really maximize this investment when we bring it to the region. Now, when we think about a major capital investment like a rail project like this, we did take a look at understanding what really is a realistic time frame for making this a reality. There's been a lot of community interest in seeing this project, but where we are today is we've taken on some of that early planning at the far left, some conceptual studies, starting to understand from an engineering perspective what is possible and how this project could be implemented. But what we'll need to do is move into the planning stage where we really start to narrow down what is the preferred option. That'll include a lot of engagement with the community, with our stakeholders, so that we're identifying what would best serve the community needs, and ultimately move into a formal environmental analysis. So that all takes quite a bit of time, as you can see, about 7 to 10 years to complete all of the planning, project development type efforts there. Beyond that, of course, there's the final design and construction. If this project were to leverage tunnels to keep those high speeds and fast travel times, those are very complicated structures as well. So the design and construction would also be expected to take maybe 7 to 12 years, as we noted. So this is based on some similar example projects. And to maybe share a couple of those specific examples here, if you can hopefully see it a little better on your screen, we looked at a few examples of similar projects in Seattle and Los Angeles areas, and at the bottom is our latest Blue Line trolley extension, just for comparison. And you can see that the bottom 2 examples there, they were definitely on the shorter side of the time frame, but note that those were much shorter corridors. Between National City and Sorrento Mesa is 20 miles. So definitely a much longer project than what these previous examples were. And these 2 projects also did not have any tunneling. The top example from Seattle, top of this graphic, was the longest corridor that we saw of a similar type of project. And even that did not have substantial tunneling. So I hope this really just helps to kind of give that basic ground truth of why we expect this to be quite a long path until we have a really high quality transit service up and running. From here, we did take this first step at identifying some options, how we could implement this project as a sort of subway line, heavy rail type of transit mode. And I do want to emphasize that we were not making any final decisions about where this certainly would go, where the stations would be, but just starting to explore from an conceptual engineering level what could be possible and what are some options. So starting in the south, we definitely wanted to serve National City and consider connections to the Blue Line there, while also considering potentially extending farther south, although we did not look at that in detail. We understand that it's still the long-term vision for the project. And in these communities, more in the south and central part of our region, given how residential these areas are, the streets are a little bit narrower, and so we thought it would be best to have this section of the project be underground. That also gives us the benefit of avoiding all of the canyons and creeks and impacts that would be needed just from an engineering perspective, navigating that complex topography. So we identified underground as the most likely preferred solution for this type of heavy rail transit. When we get from City Heights going into Mission Valley, though, well, that is a 400-foot change in elevation. We think it could be possible to remain underground through the valley, but that would be some steeper grades. Of course, we need to consider what it would mean to tunnel below the water table with the San Diego River there, but we think it could be possible. We would be able to reduce our costs, though, if we were to leverage above ground structures, aerial guideway instead. We looked at a few options there of maybe following more of a direct line to connect into the SDSU Mission Valley campus, transition from tunnel to above ground through the campus. We could maybe even reduce costs a bit further if we follow a roadway that already kind of follows a path into Mission Valley. So if Fairmount Avenue, just a little bit to the east, would mean traveling a little bit out of direction, but then having more of above ground construction. The trade-off, while we could save our some costs there, would be that we're, of course, not following as straight a line as possible, and we need to make some tighter turns. That does mean a little bit of a hit in terms of travel times, longer travel times. So starting to understand some of these trade-offs, and in the next phase of planning, we'd be able to really dig in and evaluate what is the best option to navigate Mission Valley in particular. Moving a bit north, similarly from getting to the north side of Mission Valley, we could stay above ground. If we follow I-15, while the line here looks like it's below ground, it would really be able to follow I-15 through the canyon up into Kearny Mesa, or we could stay below ground. And then once we're in Kearny Mesa, we could serve 1 or 2 stations within that community. Going from Kearny Mesa to the University City area, we could stay above ground really for the rest of the northern part of this alignment. If we were to follow the I-805 freeway, if we were to do that, though, of course, we'd be constructing something close to the Miramar Airfield space and would need to understand requirements and restrictions there. And if we had an above ground alignment as we get into University City, a station there would likely need to be located between the UTC and Executive Drive Blue Line stations. So it's less ideal that we wouldn't have that direct connection to the Blue Line. It would be close, but not directly co-located, and that would be because we would really need to stay within roadway right-of-way and not impact the existing structures. If we were underground, we could definitely have a tunnel and a station there right at UTC. Something important to keep in mind, though, is that the low-sand corridor that currently carries the Amtrak and Coaster service also has a long-term plan to potentially tunnel through the University City area and have a station there at UTC. That could be a great opportunity for a really premier transit center with a lot of high-quality transit service connecting there. But from the engineering perspective, certainly complicated to understand how multiple rail lines and tunnels could all fit and fit together and work together. Moving north from the University City to Sereno Mesa areas, there's another significant elevation change. Carroll Canyon, there is a 300-foot drop. And so even if our Purple Line was mostly underground, it does seem like at least crossing this canyon, we would need some kind of elevated structure. So certainly some consideration of what would that mean in terms of impacts to the natural space. How could we limit that? Serving Sorrento Mesa itself is also a challenge. While there are so many jobs in our region are located there, they are fairly spread out. Of course, that community is, I see a lot of construction there. There's a lot of new jobs coming and more density, but it is difficult to serve all of the jobs with just one station. So we'll work closely with city staff to understand how development continues to change there and what is the best way to serve that community with transit to connect to those jobs. So this is a really high-level overview, but hopefully gives you a sense of what we were able to explore as part of this conceptual planning study and some of the options we identified. And there are several feasible options, at least at this conceptual engineering stage, that we were able to look into. But with that, when we've laid everything out from the engineering perspective, well, then we went ahead and did some cost estimates. What would this mean? What would it take to build this project? When we think about just the rail guideway and the structures that would be this kind of public transit side of the route, that would cost $19 to $23 billion for a little more than 20 miles between National City and Sorrento Mesa. On top of constructing that portion of the rail and structures and guideway, we would also need to, of course, purchase new vehicles that would run along this route, as well as construct a maintenance facility so that these vehicles could get serviced and be stored when they're not running. That would be an additional cost in total of about, we're estimating $2 to $4 billion. And when I give these ranges, what really impacts the high end versus the low end is how much of this rail route is above ground versus below ground. Tunneling is more expensive. And when we're thinking about the cost of that maintenance facility, the range in cost there is really about how far do we need to travel to connect from kind of the public facing side of the route to that maintenance facility. If it's just a 1 mile connection versus a 3 mile connection, that's what is impacting that range. It's more expensive to build more guideway. We also calculated what we would estimate to be the ridership on this route. If we were to build the Purple Line just between National City and Sorrento Mesa as we had laid it out, but we were able to use a model that FTA prefers for evaluating projects, and it takes into account, what are the existing options for getting around the region, what are the existing driving options, transit options, where do people live and work through the region. We're able to model all of that and then model if we were to open the Purple Line, tomorrow, that ran from National City to Sorrento Mesa. What would that look like? So for just that section, we estimated about 25 to 30,000 daily riders. And of those, about 10,000 were new transit trips, folks who weren't already using transit. So that's definitely meaningful demand, but we were expecting to see a higher ridership for this kind of faster metro type of transit mode. Just for comparison, that's about on the order of what we see in terms of ridership on the Green Line today. And if we compare that to our strongest route, the Blue Line, we get over 70,000 daily riders on the Blue Line today. So definitely something that's impacting our estimates for that Purple Line ridership is that we're not making that connection down to the rest of South County and the border. We know that there's a lot of transit trips happening down there. While folks could transfer from the Blue Line to the Purple Line in National City, it's certainly less convenient than if you could take the Purple Line all the way south. Another factor is that our forecast for growth within the region is a lot lower than what prior planning efforts have estimated. The most recent data and trends are indicating that between now and 2050, we'll see a total growth of less than 10% population in the area around the Purple Line stations. And it's actually even lower when you think about region-wide. So while the neighborhoods may be zoned to become a lot more dense, the cities are planning that there could be this higher level of development. We just don't have the guarantee that that will necessarily happen by 2050. And And of course, that means that if there aren't as many people living in these communities, then we'll have lower estimated ridership. While this ridership was not as high as we expected, I am still expecting that it would be a contender for these federal funding programs especially when you consider the historically underserved communities and the transit-dependent riders that would benefit from the project that we've laid out. It does seem that we're on track to be eligible for those federal funding programs. And so that's really promising. While this study, we did find that the costs were higher and the ridership was lower, it was still, I think, valuable that we were able to consider this next level of transit technology, bringing something like a subway to San Diego and wrap our arms around what that would mean and how it would perform, and consider this as really a forward-thinking project to serve our communities. But this does highlight the need to really understand what are all of the options and do that careful comparison and evaluation to determine, what is the best use of our regional funds and what can best serve the community needs. So we'll certainly want to consider things like, what would it mean to build this as a trolley? What would it mean to have a rapid bus connecting these communities instead? I think as part of this project, we also talked a lot about how 20 miles is really a lot to undertake in one project. It'll be important as we move forward to understand how we could break that into phases. So we started to look at some potential phase 1 options. At least for the modeling that we did, we saw the strongest ridership between National City and Mission Valley. So maybe that could be a good option for kind of a first phase of something that could open and be successful as we continue to plan for further extensions. And we'll continue to look at that. I'll also mention that while this planning study just wrapped up last month, we've also been working on our regional plan for several months. And so it'll be really important that we take the lessons that we've learned from this planning study and incorporate those into our regional plan assumptions. So maybe that means from the regional plan perspective, where we identify what are all of the projects that we can build by 2050, maybe the purple line will scale back and say that only 1 or 2 phases of the purple line are really realistic to be open in 2050. Maybe we'll consider that trolley option as a way to reduce the cost of the project while still providing a high quality transit between these communities. So we'll be coming back next month to talk more about the regional plan, but I just wanted to preview that of course, these planning efforts are happening in parallel, and we need to make our best guess based on the information we have now of what we assume in the regional plan. Certainly won't close any doors of what the purple line could end up becoming as we do that careful comparison and evaluation, but just our best guess from what we know now. All right, so a little bit about what this means of where we're going next with the purple line. When we brought this to the working groups, I presented to the mobility working group and social equity working group. There was a lot of encouragement and support to continue planning and evaluating what a high quality transit option could look like between these communities and provide something that really could be competitive with driving, because these freeways are so busy today. They did note how complex the project was and agreed that phasing would be important to evaluate, and also noted that when we start to do more public outreach, we'll really need to be careful to do a good job of educating what is really the timeline to implementation, where are we now, and what can the public expect in terms of next steps for this project. So we'll want to undertake all of that in the next phase, which is called the alternatives analysis. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but that will be the study where we do a really robust evaluation of what are all the options for this project, not only in terms of the transit type, is it heavy rail, light rail, maybe some kind of driverless system, maybe a bus system. Let's consider all of those options, compare them with one another, and decide what is the best solution. That will require a lot of stakeholder engagement and public engagement, so that when we define, what is best, what is successful, that we're able to get that input and meet the community needs and really maximize our investment. And the funding for that study was actually budgeted back in October of 2023. It's reflected in our approved budgets. So we're ready to move forward on this, but just wanted to give the opportunity for any input before we finalize that and move forward. At the same time, we know that implementing this project, especially if it does turn out to be a rail project that we want to move forward on, that will take quite a bit of time. So in parallel, we want to get a rapid bus service up and running because we can get that operating a lot sooner. So that's shown, it's a red dashed line on the map of what we think a potential rapid route could be that would rely a lot on the freeway corridors to keep travel times low, provide fast transit between these communities. You'll hear more about rapid planning in your next agenda item, but this is definitely one that we're going to be looking at later this year. And I also mentioned all of that related planned service in South County. We have the existing Blue Line today, and we want to make improvements on that line to improve travel times and increase capacity. There's so much demand there, and really is in need of improvements to meet the demand. At the same time, the state has also identified interest in extending the low sand corridor, and that Amtrak and coaster service could potentially go down to San Isidro as well. So if we're considering those services as well as Purple Line service, we really need to evaluate all of those together and make sure that we can have an integrated system that will meet the needs of folks traveling to and from the border and to and from South County. So that will be done in a separate study. Of course, the findings from that and the findings from the Purple Line alternatives analysis will be able to kind of feed in together and help define what the Purple Line will look like as we make those project decisions. But these studies will all be kicking off later this year. And I want to speak a bit more to the alternatives analysis and what exactly that will look like. As I mentioned a few times, there's all of these options that we need to consider. And so early on, we'll need to work with the stakeholders and the community to define what are the project goals and objectives and define what does success look like. And when we do that, we'll be able to do this iterative process of narrowing down to what is the most promising of the options, add more detail to those, come back again to stakeholders in the community, do an analysis, and ultimately come up with a short list of recommended alternatives that can move into the formal environmental analysis process and continue to get more and more detailed design done. And there'll be a lot of public meetings as we pare that down, but of course, we'll also share updates with this group along the way. As part of identifying those alternatives, we'll need to consider those options for phasing the project, those options for where a maintenance facility site could be. And so all of that will need to be done in this really thorough and iterative process. Ultimately, when we have those final recommended alternatives, those would come back to this group and the board for formal approval. And then we'd be able to move into an environmental analysis stage and hopefully make this project a reality. This process also helps us remain eligible for the state and federal funds where they really want to see these robust planning efforts that involve the community and involve our stakeholders along the way. So based on your comments today, I can finalize our solicitation to move into an alternatives analysis effort later this year. And of course, along the way, we'll continue to share project updates on our webpage and use our email list, especially as we get to the point of having outreach opportunities. We'll want to make sure that as many people can participate as possible. But with that, happy to take your questions.
I think I wanted to highlight, and so already mentioned it, but very similar to the airport transit connection, we're looking into phase approaches here. You know, you saw the timetable to get a project of this magnitude, if we even have the budget to do it. And if the environmental impacts are within reach, right, that to be dealt with. But so the phase approach, as she mentioned, you know, our upcoming regional transportation plan, as well as the existing one, it's very, its backbone is the managed lane system. And the managed lane system will allow us to do the bus rapid transit system that she was mentioning through 805 and connecting to the 15 and allowing us to connect to those communities. Either that, or, you know, we have to do something because we can't be sitting and waiting for 25 years to figure something out. So, you know, that was her point, and you're going to be hearing about the rapids also that we're working. So we're trying to do that multi-phase. We're not closing our eyes to being ambitious to go and look for those far-reaching projects, but you know, she put it is they're there and we need to pursue them, but we also need to be realistic on what the communities need right now. So I just wanted to highlight that on that phase approach. And then the big dialogue has to happen, right? What's affordable, what's not affordable, what can we achieve? But it is the low hanging fruit could be those rapids that would allow us to serve the community if we can get them to work appropriately.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the presentation. Actually, we'll start with public speakers. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
Yes, we have one public commenter, Blair Beekman. You can go.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Yeah, I'm assuming I have 2 minutes. Thanks for the meeting today. Good luck that SANDAG and the crazy events that's going on in LA the past few weeks, that we can keep it together and have really want to work to continue to work towards responsible practices, accountability, and I've been using the term dignity. We work on all those things here locally. It'll give really good examples to LA that they really need right now. Things are going to be really crazy there for a while. I hope it doesn't affect us. Good luck how we can be responsible at this time. With that all said, good luck with this item. Responsibility is needed. You tried to talk about good public input for the future of this project. Thank you. A few questions for myself. I hope that you can always be talking about the upcoming public transit system preparedness for national city issues and how that will be connected in all of this in the future. To make that a regular conversation, I think would be very helpful. Thank you for talking about, you know, the use of, you know, the bus system along the freeways and stuff, and how that will be an important part of this process. I'm sure people will mention, if possible, for the Purple Line to simply become and supplant the current bus system along the freeways. As an idea, just what to be prepared for. I don't have any deep opinions. I'm just hearing things now for the first time. I kind of like the underground idea, but I have fears that is it safe, for one thing? And number two, what do the optics look like when you're offering people who are coming across the border? I mean, not everyone is an illegal immigrant who comes across the border, but a lot of illegal immigrants who do cross the border use an underground system to get across the border. What sort of optics does that present? I just wanted to put that out there to think about. And question number three, I had one other question. I can't think of it now, but.
That concludes the public comments.
Thank you. Do we have any committee member comments or discussion? Okay, go ahead, Rafael.
I guess one question I had is down in the South Bay, at South San Diego, it looks like there's a lot of redundancy with the current blue line. I'm just wondering, you know, one of the benefits of the blue line is taking people out of their cars at the San Ysidro port of entry. Why isn't the Otay Mesa port of entry a connection, and why isn't that footprint broadened instead of redundant?
Yeah, I think certainly want to avoid redundancy. There's been a lot of interest in having service similar to the Blue Line that could be faster, and that could, those Blue Line trains today are very full, and so I think there's definitely a need for more capacity there. We can certainly consider options for connections to Otay Mesa. In our regional plan, we have some rapid routes that connect to Otay Mesa because we definitely want to provide more options for folks who are crossing the border at any border crossing to get out of their cars.
I can give you a little bit more expanded. First of all, the trolley is to Otay Mesa. It's a heavy lift due to the grades that we have. Right? The mesa is quite higher, so that's a challenge there. But the environmental document in the right-of-way that was acquired for Otay Mesa East has set aside property for a transit station. So there's about 6 or 7 acres set up. They're reserved and we're already environmentally cleared to build a transit station there. We have been working, MTS and the experts are here, but like the 905, that we've been working, we set up more stops, one at the San Isidro High School. We expanded that with Caltrans on the stops on the ramps, and it's been super successful. We will be embarking hopefully in the future to look at a transit station also somewhere in the Caliente area. And for the new border crossing, like I said, there is already cleared, environmentally clear and right-of-way reserved for a future transit station. Granted that the Otay Mesa East border crossing first phase is not a pedestrian crossing. So just wanted to put it out there. We could tell you, yeah, we're including and all that, but to be quite honest, to get a trolley over there, it's going to be expensive and technically a very heavy lift.
Thanks for that. Other comments or questions? Esther?
Thank you. Lots of money, $25 billion. I almost, squeaked or something. But anyway, that is such a challenge, isn't it, to figure out like a transition and that, having a final ideal kind of project. I remember about 25 years ago, I was listening to a presentation about, I think it was Sao Paulo, that was using buses with platforms, so to try to get people in and out as quickly as possible. I don't know what they're using now, but I thought it was really cool that they were like thinking about ways that they could use. And here you've talked about managed lanes and how to get folks in and out. And of course, we're talking about, and what they talked about was getting the most people. You need a lot of people going to the same direction or same place at the same time, right? And of course, timing is important. Multiple, how long in between you get the transportation. And I'm also looking at the entire county and the entire county's needs. And I'm assuming that's something that's going to be coming up. It's like, how do we do this equitably? Because that 25 billion will probably become 50 billion or more. So how do we do this? And so micro transit is something for inner, but here you're talking about getting to further places. I was a student on the East Coast. I use the buses all the time. I also was a student in San Francisco and used that. So for me, it was great to be able to buy a pass for $30 and be able to go a month and go everywhere. As students, I think that we have to look at all ages, including seniors, especially seniors who aren't able to drive anymore because the license issue. But yeah, I guess for me, it's looking at the total package, like total vision, and how we can afford to cover the entire county in a way that we can all of us support. But thank you.
Yeah, and I think just to get, that's what the regional plan is looking at. And just to put it in perspective, the regional plan budget for the current one that's in effect had about $150 billion of improvements. So when you look at improvements, they're 20 billion. We really need to have that cost benefit, but also in the cost benefit analysis, the benefits are also to the seniors, to others, right? It's not just dollars and cents straight out. So we hear you, and the purpose of having these presentations, both planning and capital projects, is because in the very near future, our chair wants to have a priority discussion and a reality check, right? We can keep planning, but we also need to be thinking about the needs right now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Sean.
Thanks for the presentation. Mario, I appreciated your summary at the end because I think as I was listening, the urgency to provide some relief to the folks who really depend on the system right now and do that as quickly as possible. I think it's important that we act with urgency. This makes a meaningful difference in people's lives. So I guess what I'm wondering is, when do you see what's the timeline for like making real decisions about, directions to head? And I definitely applaud the interim actions, the desire to get a rapid going as quickly as possible. But this is a major decision one way or another. It's going to have a huge impact on the ability for us to make other decisions because of the cost involved. And then the last part of that is, in what way are we considering lower cost alternatives in addition to rapid to achieve the same desired outcomes?
The last one is a very hard question. So I'll go with the first ones. And at the end, the policy advisory committees and the board are the ones who ultimately decide. Now, what do we have in the pipeline? In the pipeline, we have, as an agency and as a board, I would say several major points of thought, of discussion and decisions. And one of them, I'm going to just put it out there, but it connects eventually. The 125 tolls, no tolls, early or not early, pay it off or not pay it off within the time frame or earlier. Decision point number one. And those are important things because each time you turn on or off a switch, the BMT impacts on the regional plan go up and down, and we need to meet some targets. No targets, no money from the feds in the state. So that's one. 805 HOBs in South Bay got carbon reduction funds to convert to managed lanes. We need to get money to extend them at least to the I-15 so it makes a realistic connection. That's a reachable project in the very near future. Almost at the same time when we turn off the plug, the switch from the 125, we could turn on the switch on the 805. The same is applicable to the I-5 HOBs and convert them into managed lanes and fully fund the extension of I-5 HOB from 76 to Oceanside. That would complete the network. Within a window, not exactly at the same time, we could go and turn on two switches and turn off a switch. That would balance the BMT, that would allow us to have north-south connections on managed lanes to experiment and see how successful we are with that. And that's within the realm of 2030. And that's, for infrastructure projects, that's reachable. It takes a lot of big decisions. The money can be there. The board will have to have those priority discussions. But I'm trying to answer the question. It will be a board decision and a TC will also have to weigh in, but we're really, they're reachable. Other alternatives, oh my God, I'll let Antoinette, our director.
I'll
of
take the
planning.
hard question.
Yeah.
So the alternatives analysis that Cecily is about to embark on will look at those lower cost alternatives, including bus, light rail, and other options for the corridor. So we'll be coming back to you with that information, but that is, a couple-year process to go through the alternatives analysis.
Other comments? Hey, thanks for the presentation. And all the good comments so far. I have to agree to reiterate some some famous person's quote, a billion here, a billion there, and eventually started talking about real money. But the price tag does get a little bit shocking. I guess one question is, relative to a comment made by the public speaker and was also my mind, does the modeling show, or is it something that was even looked at, if whether or not there's a difference in the ridership versus of an underground facility versus above ground? I know having a daughter that lives in Chicago and very much focuses on taking the above ground train solution as opposed and tries to stay out of the tunnels as much as possible for safety concerns. I don't know, is that something that would influence the model there that you know of?
No, this kind of modeling wouldn't be able to take into account those personal safety concerns. It does take into account if there is some kind of grade separation so that the train is not having to wait at signals where cars would have to cross. But there's really, from the model's perspective, not a difference between being above ground, like the Blue Line trolley portion that's above ground versus a tunnel.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I don't know, but the time frame we're talking about is possible that by then we would have the ability to use certain technology that might make people feel safer, and hopefully that'll solve the problem. But I know it's a real problem now with the people that I'm aware of that deal with above versus below ground solutions. And the other one is, we talk about building connections to the San Diego airport. Was there any concept of trying to make this connect into the cross-border express for a transit solution into there?
That we're looking into some of the ideas with the transit stations in Otay of having a stop on CBX. And I don't know, I think MTS has had discussions with CBX also, very high level.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I know there's been some internal discussions, but I have to check into that.
We do have a transit connection to CBX in the regional plan. It's an express bus that goes from San Isidro to.
Yeah, just
the
rails
airport.
nicer, but
Yeah.
I was just wondering if we had thought about taking this one, because it looks like it would land pretty close down there. I don't know. It's tough to say. But
The purple line?
I couldn't tell from the graph.
Oh,
where
no,
it ends.
remember what I mentioned to the TC member here, the grades.
Yeah.
It would be super steep to go up to the mesa with a trolley. It would be costly.
Okay, thanks.
Costlier.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Seeing no other comments, this was just a discussion item. Thank you again for the detailed presentation. We will go ahead and move on to item number 7, which is the planning and preliminary design for 6 next-gen rapid bus routes. And we have Brian and Mimi for this.
And this is a continuation of the discussion we were just having, pretty much. You could say that, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I was going to start. Speaking of rapids, thank you. Brian Lane, Senior Transit Planner here with SANDAG, and I'll be presenting with Mimi, who will introduce herself in a little bit. There we go. So yeah, I think Cecily's item set us up perfectly to kind of talk about the rapids. And I think a lot of your questions are setting us up perfectly to talk about these. But in the draft 2025 regional plan, we have 35 new rapid routes that we hope we can start by 2035. So that's very ambitious. And it's, something we want to do. And I think the board recognized that back in October 2023 and budgeted the $26.6 million to get us going on these routes. This map on the right shows that full network and in the regional plan draft network, and the rapids are shown in there, and it's probably hard to see. You can see it on your iPads a little bit closer, but you can see that robust rapid network and how it's really helping to be that backbone of our transit system. And in line with some of these rails lines that may come in the future, but the rapids to us is really this backbone. Like Mario mentioned, with the work we can do on the freeways with managed lanes or any kind of priority measures on the freeways, this further helps us get our goals that we need to do in that regional plan by providing options to the public that are, as fast or close as fast as their trips can be in the car. And so, how do you do that to try and beat the auto speeds? Is we already have our network of rapids out there today. There's 8 to 10 routes, depending on which ones you call rapids. But essentially, they're trying to be faster than your regular route, local route that's out there today. You'll have fewer stops than the local bus route. You're trying to give it priority measures where possible or when needed, when there's congestion on the road, to bypass that congestion. traffic signal priority is a big part of that as well. I'll talk about that in a little bit, as well as level and all door boarding. And Mayor Sanchez, you had mentioned that that high station type thing. That is one of those kind of priority measures that helps rapids succeed. They're frequent. That's most local bus routes are generally every 15 minutes. Some of your more frequent or heavier used bus routes may hit 7.5 minutes. But with rapids, you do want to get at least 10 minutes all day, and that really helps provide options for folks to get back and forth to their jobs or other business all day, not just during the peak time of the commutes. Really trying to get that reliability and convenience as a factor to try and get people out of their car, to provide them that option. If they know that the rapids are a reliable way to get to where they need to go, they'll be willing to take it. And then modern shelters is also a big part of it, and that's a big part of some of the federal grant criteria that we have to do. Is they do want those shelters to be the bus stops a little different than the regular bus stops to really help that service stick out and be that kind of that premium bus service. So kind of getting to the weeds of what transit priority measures look like. We did a study a few years ago looking at a couple routes, just did very minimal design, kind of got into the weeds of some of these. Some of our current rapid routes out there use some of these different priority measures throughout the county. We have the managed lanes on the I-15 that our rapids can use to fly right by all the people stuck in the regular lanes on the 15. The picture on the far left is an example of on El Cajon Boulevard. We have a shared bus and bike lane. It's not transit's perfect example of what to do. They prefer not to have to be behind a bike, and I'm sure a bicyclist doesn't prefer to have a bike behind or a bus behind them. But it is still a good way to provide that priority for a bus. There's queue jump lanes, and we do have a few of these throughout the county, but this is a way to, add a signal. The bus can get its own little pocket at the light to pull up to, kind of bypassing the backup at the light, and then the light will turn green first for the bus, get that bus moving down the road ahead of the traffic that will start a couple seconds after. Transit signal priority, and this is, it's technology, and it's basically GPSs on the buses, interacting with the signals, and some of our cities already have this throughout the region and are doing this with our buses. This technology is getting smarter and smarter, and Mimi's going to talk a little bit about our next steps with technology planning on this, but it is a great way to provide that priority for buses, interacting with the signals, either giving them greens ahead or keeping them green so they can continue moving forward. And then, like Mayor Sanchez, you mentioned, the level and all-door boarding. If you can raise the platforms up a little bit, like Sao Paulo has, Curitiba, a lot of other big cities in South America do this. That just helps speed the boarding process, gets the bus in and out of that station that much faster.
Thanks, Brian. Mimi Morisaki, I'm a senior planner here at SANDAG as well. And Brian and I are splitting up and teaming on this presentation because these 6 routes will take quite a bit of effort. So I will be the project manager for a couple of these routes and Brian on several others. So we'll go over each of those routes in the coming slides. On this slide particularly, there's a map of all 6 routes that we are kicking off. Again, we'll go through each one individually, but also just wanted to note that while you're seeing some hard lines on a map right now, what we're starting as part of this kickoff effort is alternatives analysis. So all of these lines are subject to change, and each project team will go through this alternatives analysis with the appropriate jurisdictions and operators and, of course, community members. So with that said, this overall rapid conceptual planning project includes 3 main components, which Brian and I are leading right now with the design and engineering, which includes this alternatives analysis up to 15% design and engineering, and also identifying the appropriate environmental document. Also part of this process is this rapid technology that Brian just went over. So those transit priority measures, a separate team is leading that effort at SANDAG, and we'll be coordinating with jurisdictions and operators as well to talk through and identify the appropriate measures for each community. We understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all, and seeing all the separate routes throughout the region here, we know a lot of these routes are going to cross jurisdictional boundaries as well. So that project team for technology will pull all those groups together and talk through some transit priority measures as well. And another main component is public outreach. We will have CBO support, and this public outreach overall is going to be led by our public affairs team in-house with consultant support as well. They will be leading the public outreach effort for each of the 6 routes, so there'll be a lot of work going on and engaging the communities on our projects. And all of this is being done to be eligible for grants. Thank you. This is the overall timeline that we have. We are currently in the 2025 to 26 timeframe with this alternatives analysis as our first phase. And then we'll be moving into 30% design and engineering in the next phase. And one of the routes that Brian's going to talk about later can get to that stage in the 2027 to 2028 timeframe. And from there, it's the ultimate implementation, finish design, construct, and open these routes for operation. So we'll start to go through each route one by one, providing a high-level overview, starting with Rapid 277. Again, these are still in draft form and subject to change. This route starts in Ramona and will travel south on SR 67, west through Poway, and terminate at the Sabre Springs Transit Center. And the main purpose of this route is to provide the residents of Ramona access to the larger transit network here. Rapid 880 is an east-west route starting in El Cajon, traveling north through Santee, west through the 52 to Curdy Mesa, and then terminate at UCSD. This project is also part of Caltrans's SR 52 improvements project, and would also utilize managed lanes on the 52 and 805 when they come online.
Oops, those are the routes that Mimi will be managing. My team and I will be managing the next 4 routes. The first is the 483, and these numbers are just, they're numbers we use in the regional plan. I've gotten a few comments from folks about, why'd you already pick that number? That doesn't even make sense for the current numbering system we have out there. They're just placeholders, and we'll let the public know that, but maybe we'll have naming contest or something to actually give the numbers. So don't get too tied to these numbers. The 483 is connecting Temecula and Riverside County down to the San Marcos Palomar area, connecting the 2 universities down there. This is in conjunction with the Caltrans work that they're doing on the I-15 SR-78 Managed Lane Connector project, and could potentially be a tool that they use to mitigate for their project. There used to be a route that Riverside provided down through this kind of corridor, and it did go away with COVID. And I know both NCTD and Riverside Transit are very interested in getting something to come back. We've heard from the universities up there that they would love something like this because they do have a huge student population that lives in Temecula and has to deal with that 15 traffic in the afternoons, which can be pretty bad.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit, Brian, on this one. Going back again to the question you had, council member, this is a real one, because the 7815 connector project, the draft document should be released within months, should be released. And that has BMT mitigation that directly is an impact of potential funding for this route. So that's one that it's starting to come landing into the reality from a financial plan perspective. So I just wanted to put it out there. This is extremely tight. Brian said the Caltrans project. Caltrans is the lead, but we're paying for a good chunk of it. And we will end up having to figure out the $450 or $500 million capital cost. But within, it's also the mitigation for a rapid, potentially as BMT mitigation.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah, next on our list is Rapid 640, which is, Cecily kind of was alluding to this in her presentation of the South County Transit area. Without the ability to do blue line improvements in the near future, this is a perfect route that we could get going out there sooner than later, serving the border and a few either stations at Chula Vista, National City, and then getting to downtown. MTS is starting, Mike, next week. The OWL service in the middle of the night, a similar route like this that will provide a bus service when the blue line has to shut down because of the freight operations that take over the blue line in the middle of the night. So MTS is starting this. This is kind of the precursor to this. In a week or so, we'll see how the ridership goes from that. The good thing with running in the middle of the night is you don't have congestion. So that's not going to be MTS's problem in the near future, but as we start planning this route, how do we get around the congestion on this corridor? And so like Mario mentioned, on the 805 managed lanes on here, what can we do in the short term? If we don't have managed lanes right away, maybe we use the positive benefits we've been getting from our bus on shoulders on the South Bay Rapid that's out there today, has some of that, or other kinds of measures that we can do in the short term before managed lanes get out there. And so as we get into this project, it's going to be fun working with the public and Caltrans and others to really try and see what we can do to make this route successful during the day when there is congestion. The 688 is the one that Cecily referred to as the dotted line on her map. This is that we're calling it kind of the purple line precursor, connecting San Ysidro to the Kearney Mesa and then UCSD area. Obviously, it's using the freeways as much as possible to get that route up to the Kearney Mesa jobs and UC San Diego UTC jobs areas as fast as possible. Stops and alignments on this is still definitely to be determined to try and figure out how to best serve the most people we can with this route. Good.
How quickly would people be able to get from one end to the other
I
on this?
don't know if we've modeled that or looked at it. I mean, ideally, if we can get past congestion, it would be, as fast as the speed limits can allow. If they can get going 65 miles an hour, it could be a pretty fast service. So yeah, we haven't timed this, but we'll come back with those kinds of numbers as we get into the project. It depends on how many stops you have and if we are having to go off the freeway to do a stop, all those kinds of things. That's a great question. And then lastly is the Rapid 625. We've already done a little bit of the planning and engineering on this as that first study we did a couple of years ago. This is a really popular route with a lot of communities. This is our only route of these 6 that is completely on arterial roads, on the regular roads, coming from SDSU down to Palomar, trolley down in Chula Vista, through Euclid, 57th, coming through National City and Chula Vista along 4th or 3rd. This route, again, like I said, has been, it was really popular. We had a lot of interest in this from the public when we went out. So we'll dive back into this route, really finalize some of the alternatives that we had in that first round of work. And then like Mimi had mentioned earlier, this was one of the routes that was funded a little bit more to get us through that 30% design and engineering and environmental, and hopefully really set us up for some of those capital grants that may be coming out sooner than later, and we can use all the good work from this to apply for those types of grants and really get running to get towards operation of that route.
Immediate next steps for these routes. I'll start by mentioning that we have 2 community kickoff meetings coming up for Rapid 277. That's the Ramona to Poway route. That'll be a virtual meeting at the end of this month, Wednesday, the 29th at 6 p.m. And then we'll have a similar kickoff meeting for Rapid 880. That's the El Cajon to UCSD route at the end of February. That will be February 26th at 6 p.m. So mark your calendars. We're just putting that on the books now as well. So you'll start to hear more about those 2 events coming up. Otherwise, we're also still working on the existing conditions analysis for each of these routes in-house, including working on setting the goals, objectives, and performance measures for ranking our alternatives. And we are seeking consultant support for each of these route teams. 6 routes at once would require some help. So we have actually our bidding period closes today. So we'll hopefully have a consultant on board for each team by the springtime this year. And here's our contact information, rapid@sandag.org. If anyone would like to sign up for newsletters as well or get in contact with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
There are no public comments.
Okay. Any committee member discussion or comments? Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, just want to say I definitely appreciate the work. I would say from an NCTD perspective, one of the things I heard when I came on board was that our team was pretty surprised that SANDAG had put Route 483 in and had already had discussions publicly without having a conversation with the agency about it. Two cities within our jurisdiction actually put in ordinances prohibiting managed lanes within their cities as a result of the lack of communication. I think we could have helped bridge that gap with those cities and sort of walk them through what rapid transit looks like in their city. The other piece of it too is full disclosure. We were already looking into a solution that was bus on shoulder versus rapid transit in a managed lane. We felt like that was a better utilization of transit being in a singular mode versus being in a mixed managed lane traffic. So it was a little bit difficult for us to look at this and sort of weigh it as the best option. I think that the team appreciates the work that has happened since then and that they've been involved in. But I would say just in the future, anytime I think we're involved from a service perspective in that conversation, we really need to know before it becomes public that these things are being discussed and that consultants are looking to be brought on board because we could have mitigated, I think, some of the communication damage that was done with those two cities who are very, very interested in having growth in public transit in their respective areas. So that would just be my comment. You know, I definitely appreciate the work that's being done here. I spent a great deal of my career working on bus rapid transit, and I definitely see the value of it, specifically in comparison to light rail or heavy rail. And I do think it does make some sense here if it is the best alternative, but I think we need to have those discussions before we put them into a regional plan that becomes public. So that would be my only comment, but definitely appreciate the work. I know that's not easy to do and excited to see where it goes.
And
Thank you
just
very-
to, sorry, quickly, this was, I think, during your transition time between the last CEO and you, but we did have a lot of communication with your planners and staff at the agency, and she did even push back a little bit on this route, like why this route, why not others. And we didn't get into the details of why these 6 routes, why not a lot of whole other routes, but yeah, your staff person did say we have 2 other routes, rapid routes. And we didn't get to have this at our meeting with Mario and you last week. It was a great meeting we had, but it was cut short. But there's definitely ideas of what other kinds of routes and what are the next routes, because we have 35 routes in this thing, and your planners had a big part of coordinating with us which routes to do as rapids in the area. And so we look forward to, you know, what are the next routes we can do.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. I think one of the keys for us is the 78 corridor. When we begin the project that's been slated for years to improve the 78 corridor, I definitely think that we have an opportunity there to manage service along managed lanes of 78 in addition to complementing our Sprinter service. So I think the big concern for us was how some of those cities are impacted on the east end of 78 where we connect to 15. And we want to make sure that they're moving the same direction we are so that we can kind of combine all these things together. But definitely, you know, again, like I said, I definitely appreciate the work.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just from the MTS side, echo everything Sean said about the staff and their work. A lot of people remember that on the MTS side, all of these were basically high priorities as part of Elevate. And, you know, it's unfortunate that didn't move forward, but we're excited to see this move forward and work with the SANDAG team. I know we already have, you know, technical advisors from our planning department, so we're excited to see these.
Great. Looking forward to the coordination. Any other comments? Yeah, Monica. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Just briefly want to say thank you for this presentation. I also appreciate rapid bus routes, especially with regard to our topography here in San Diego and some of the challenges that we may have building out light and heavy rail, that this really is a good option. And also just from the perspective of the MTS board, oftentimes the buses are a bit safer as well, or at least have that perception. And so I appreciate this presentation. I just have a quick question about the one route in particular, it's sort of an overall question, but I'll use this one route as an example. Route 60 that goes to UTC from the Euclid Trolley Station. At least one of the Route 625, but others, how are we looking to kind of expand where folks would begin these routes, like 47th Street, for example, as opposed to Euclid? Or are we still trying to pretty much concentrate on the service areas in one kind of station or area?
Yeah, oh, the good old 47th Street was there was a whole study to look at adding an access lane from the freeway to connect to the 47th Street. And I mean, that station's so much high above the freeway. That was a tough one. So Euclid's still kind of that big area. And we've been hearing from a few community members on the 625 even, could we get it closer to the 47th Street station? So I think there is an alternative that looks at that. And then the 60 is, that existing route that's out there today that provides that service. And I'm not sure if MTS is considering also hitting over at 47th Street, but the regional plan does have a couple other express routes that are dissimilar to the routes that are out there today to try and do those types of services. And then the purple line, if it comes, it would hit Euclid area somewhere and then head up that area.
Okay, thank you.
But I think you guys are working on alternative analysis, engaging with the public. So this is the beginning of the conversation, right? If you see a line, a proposal, like the team said, it's not because it's going to go there. It's how we begin the conversation and hearing all the different concerns there may be. The things to be taken into consideration in one geographic area may not be the same ones to take in consideration in another geographic area. Basically, one recipe for a solution. There's not one single solution for the different areas in San Diego, but I think the team are trying to identify all those different areas of opportunity, and then they can get tweak, change, enhance our communications, whatever we need to do, right? We clearly understand that we provide, but we hand it off to the owner operators, and it has to work for those owner operators and for the public, right? This is what the public needs. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there somebody else that you were pointing me at?
Yes, Rafael.
Oh, Rafael, go ahead.
My comments on the 625 route. I recently had a conversation with a counselor at San Diego State in regards to their program, the Compact Scholars. It's a guaranteed admission for students coming out of Sweetwater that meet certain requirements. Those students are failing at a higher rate than other EOP students. And when those students were polled, their number one reason for struggling was their transportation options. So I think as the outreach happens for 625, I think that specific group, the Compact Scholars, should definitely be a group that's reached out to see, obviously they clear all these barriers to get them into college and they get there, and then transportation is that last barrier. So, I just wanted to highlight that there's a particular challenge there. And I think this will definitely help, but also that group should be reached out to for feedback.
Yeah, we have a couple folks from SDSU Transportation Department that'll be they're on our evaluation panels, and they'll be on our teams, and they've had a lot of input on that and thoughts. And San Diego State's even considering their own UPass, similar to what UCSD does. It's a low cost option for the students that they all pay and get that pass. And then I think that would be a great option for those students as well to make it affordable.
Thanks for the comments. Any other comments or thoughts? Going once, seeing no others. Again, thanks for the presentation. Looking for clearly a lot of interest in this particular space and getting things moving forward. So looking forward to the next steps and the progress and the coordination with our transit agencies. Thanks for everybody for attending. We've reached the end of the meeting. This adjournment. The next Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, February 7th, and I will note at 1 p.m. Not 9, it's at 1 p.m. And feel free to show up at 9. I'll welcome you to the Audit Committee meeting if you want to participate in audit. But otherwise, this meeting will start at 1, and Happy New Year again, everyone. See you then.